Vamos a empezar con la gramática en capítulo uno. Y para la gramática en capítulo uno vamos a hablar sobre las interrogativas, los sustantivos, los artículos, los adjetivos, la ubicación de los adjetivos, pronombres personales, los pronombres posesivos, los pronombres demostrativos y pedir contra preguntar. Y cada tema aquí es un tema de que has aprendido y ese es muy fácil. Vamos a empezar con las interrogativas. Y interrogativas solo es una palabra grande que dice question words. Y dice, all words have an accent. So you should know that all question words have an accent. I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between English and Spanish here and do more of the grammatical pieces in English and then instructions and some background in Spanish. So make sure that your question words always have an accent on them. You should always know that. In a sentence, you can say, Paul shut the door as a statement of declaration, or you can say Paul shut the door and put question marks around it, and that would make it a question in Spanish. So certain sentences can be written the same way in Spanish or in as a statement or as a question, depending on whether or not there's intonation in there that insinuates it's a question. So that's what this first highlighting says. Another thing that kind of gives it away is the subject and the verb switch. So if you see right here, donde se encuentra el cine? El cine is where is the movie theater found. They put movie theater at the end of the question. It just makes it a little bit stronger emphasis that it is actually a question. So a lot of times in questions, you'll see the subject come after the verb, which again, you should know. And then these are just some common question words, so you want to make sure you write these down. Quién for who and quiénes for who plural. A quién or a quiénes for to whom. Qué, which or what. Dónde, where. A dónde, to where. De dónde, from where. Cuándo, when. Cómo, how. Por qué as two words, as in why. Para qué, for what purpose. Cuál, which. Cuáles, which, as in plural. And cuánto, cuánta, cuántos, or cuántas, lo siento. And you'll see right here I have it highlighted that cuánto will change depending on the noun that it is describing. So that's pretty much eso es todo sobre las interrogativas. Entonces vamos a hablar sobre sustantivos y artículos. Y sustantivos in inglés se llaman nouns. So these are just some of the noun endings. And we know that in Spanish there are masculine and feminine nouns. And we know if they have an L, it's a masculine noun, or la would be a feminine noun. And if it ends in an A, it's a feminine noun most of the time. And if it ends in an O, it's a masculine noun most of the time. But there are certain endings that will always take, or most of the time take, a certain gender. So O, N, aje, are, on, el, ma. These are masculine endings. So words that end in these will usually be a masculine word. A, D, Z, and ION will be feminine words. And then this category will be feminine and this category will be masculine. Entonces vamos a hablar sobre los artículos. Y los artículos son, articles are what tell us the gender of a noun. So el for masculine, la for feminine. And there are two types of articles. There are indefinite and definite articles. Indefinite articles just mean like a or one. So un is the masculine indefinite article, which means a. And una is the feminine indefinite article, which means an or a as well. So those are pretty easy. And then we know that we can make them unos if it's plural or unas. And that kind of translates as some or a few, approximately, something like that. And definite articles are just like saying the. So we know that el is how to say the for masculine noun and la is how to say the for feminine noun. And we also know that we can make those plural for los and las. Prepositions, we know that when we have a plus el, we make it al, and when you have de plus el, we make it del, so we just kind of combine the two. Y eso es todo para los artículos. Entonces, tenemos los adjetivos. Adjectives are one of those things that you learned about in Spanish 1, and you know that you have to match them to the number and gender of the noun, but it's something that we don't have to do in English, so we often forget to do. So masculine nouns usually end in an O, so we make sure that the adjective ends in an O. Feminine, we make sure it ends in an A. If the noun ends in a different vowel, then it takes both. So most of the time it'll be E, and it doesn't change, masculine or feminine. Adjectives that end in these endings, OR, OL, ON, AN, IN, and ES, they add an A. So français, French, a female French person would be françaisa. So they add the A on there. Cortés, which means polite. If someone's polite, that's a singular version, but if it's the Berta, it would be Berta es Cortés. So that's a minor exception, and I'm not going to give you something like that, but just so that you know, most of the time it will be francés, francesa, inglés, inglesa, things like that. And then other adjectives sometimes don't have any ending in the feminine form. So grease, gray will just stay grease. And then there are some exceptions, but you don't need to know every single exception. The most important thing is that if they're plural, they get S's. So ricos, platos, platos ricos. So make sure that the rich matches plates. And then preferidas marcas, just make sure it matches feminine plural. And if the adjectives ends in a consonant I or U, we add an ES at the end. So français would be a singular person. If there are more than one French person, or French cheeses in this case, it will be françaises. So ES. But we have seen that with other words, that if it ends in a consonant, you just add ES to make it plural. And then if it ends in a Z, you change the Z to a C to keep the same ending. So feliz makes this sound at the end. If you were not to change it, it would be felices, and then the Z changes the sound. So to keep the same S sound, we have to change the Z to a C. La ubicación de adjetivos. So this is the location of adjectives. Generally, we put the adjectives after a noun. This is a black table, so it's a mesa negra. Negra will come after mesa. Sometimes adjectives are placed before a noun. A lot of times it's a subjective opinion. So it's more your personal opinion of something. It's not necessarily a fact. It's less literal. They'll put the adjective sometimes in front. It gives it a little bit of a different feeling. And a lot of adjectives, well, not a lot, but some adjectives will change their meaning depending on where they're placed. So for example, grande changes to gran when it goes at front. Grande means big, so this would be a big woman, una mujer grande, but una gran mujer, gran would change meaning to great, so this would be a great woman. So these are some of the verb or the adjectives that change meaning depending on their placement. So you can see that antiguo will be former if it's before a noun, or old if it's after a noun. Grande would be tall if it's before a noun, or great. It could also be a great person. And then after a noun, I actually disagree with that, but they're saying great or cool. I would make it big here. Pobre, poor, meaning sad, pitiful, and then after that would be poor financially. And then I added two over on the side here. Nuevo, which placed before a noun is new to you, and after a noun it's brand new. So if you bought a house that was somebody already lived in, it would be a nueva casa because it was new to you, but not a brand new house. But if you built a house, it would be a casa nueva because it's brand new. And viejo is the same thing. Old is in former, and after the noun it's old as in age. So you just have to be careful of the placement of those nouns. Entonces tenemos pronombres personales, personal pronouns. So these are a lot of times our subjects. You learn these in Spanish 1. You all know yo, tú, usted. Make sure you know that tú and usted both mean you. Tú is for informal situations. Usted is for formal situations. Él, ella, nosotros, nosotras. So nosotros and nosotras both mean we. Vosotros and vosotras, they mean you all informally. So they're like the two form of the plural two form. Ustedes also means you all, but it's more in a formal manner. A lot of countries do not use the vosotros form at all, so they only have the ustedes form, but we will learn it. Ellos and ellas is they. And then right here where it says the stressed subject, these are basically what you use following pronouns. Or if you want to say I like something, to stress the I like it, you would say a mí, me gusta. So this would be like a mí, a ti, a usted, a él, a ella. So these basically are when you're stressing an indirect object. So an indirect object pronoun, these will often go with that. These are also the pronouns used after prepositions, which you will see later on. So subject pronouns, generally we don't use them except for the third person form because we know that tango is always going to be the yo form, so that they don't always have it. Here again, this S could be él, ella, usted, so they will put the subject pronoun there. And then you can answer a question, who sings the songs? I do. You just said yo. That's all you need to do. You don't have to put a verb. You can just use the subject pronoun. With comparisons, we use the same subject pronouns. And then with certain words, hasta mismo, también, and tampoco, we could use yo for, yo mismo is myself. So just a couple different meanings. And these are all other types of pronouns that we don't necessarily need to worry about too much right now. Y los pronombres posesivos, so possessive pronouns, they refer to things that belong to us, and they have to match the noun they're associated with. And that is most of the time the most difficult part, is matching the noun that they're associated with. So if you wanted to say my cat, you would say mi gato. If you want to say my cats, cats would then be plural, gatos, so it would have to be mis gatos. So you'd have to make sure you match that. So mi, my, tu, your, su, your, his or her, nuestro, our, vuestro, all of your, and then su would be all of your as well, or their. So those are the different pronouns. So there's another way you could say my cat. You could say mi gato, but you could also say el gato mío, which would be like the cat of mine. They're stressed possessive pronouns. And these, the placement comes after. So mi gato, the mi comes before. In el gato mío, the mío would come after. So these are the stressed pronouns, and notice that they still have to match the noun that they are associated with. Pronombres demonstrativos. So pronouns, you probably have seen this pronoun numerous times. They're used to emphasize something. Basically, it's like saying this and that. And it's in relation to how close things are to you. So for example, este papel, this paper, it would be very close to you. Ese papel would be that paper, and it would be a little bit farther away. And aquel papel would be that paper way over there, and it would be the paper most farthest away. So the closest, this, could be este, esta, estos, or estas, depending on the gender and number of the noun. So esta raqueta, we matched esta to raqueta. If it's a little bit farther away, which means that, we use ese, esa, esos, or esas. And if it's really far away, aquel, aquella, aquellos, or aquellas. So those are the pronouns here. Just make sure you match them to the noun and you put them in front of the noun. So ese día, you just make sure it's before and it's that day. Y finalmente tenemos preguntar y pedir. This is a common thing for people to mess up. Pedir means to ask for, and preguntar is to ask a question. So basically, if you're asking that somebody do something, you're requesting an object or service or a favor, you use pedir. And preguntar is more to ask a question. If you're going to ask somebody to do something, you would use the subjunctive and you would use pedir. So if I were to say, I ask that you listen, yo pido que me escuches. I ask that you listen to me. So pido que me escuches. The pido present tense, and then que, and then escuches would be in the subjunctive, but I'm asking that you do something. So I would be using pedir and not preguntar. So esa es toda la gramática para capítulo 1.